Australia is a large continent covering 3 million square miles. In this film, we range over 3,000 miles of country, from the seas of the northwest to the central Australian desert. Broome is the main port on the northwest coast. Here is a huge tidal range of as much as 30 feet difference between high and low tide. Man has taken advantage of this tidal change by building fish traps. These are wire fences built along the coast. Fish swim over the fence at high tide. When they try to leave on the falling tide, the fence bars the way. So they are trapped. These pelicans have welcomed man's fish trap. The birds know just when to arrive. Each day, the tide changes 25 minutes later, but the birds adjust their time of arrival accordingly. Do they watch the movements of the sea? Do they watch the sun and decide when it's time to start? Whatever the answer, we know that every pelican for 20 miles around arrives at the Broome fish trap always on time. The owner of the trap is a little late today. The hungry ones are still inside the fence, gulping down fish as fast as they can. Some look wistfully through from the outside of the fence. This green turtle was caught in the fish trap. When the tide is fully out, the sea retreats for several miles. This is a time for the pelicans to stand and enjoy the sun while digesting their meal of fish. Cargo ships at this jetty must have a flat bottom so they can rest safely on the sand. With the return of the tide, the pelicans fly off to roosting spots where they'll be safe for the night. Tomorrow they'll be back once more to ransack the fish trap. These red sandstones mark Dinosaur Point. 130 million years ago, a huge reptile walked across the beach sand and left behind footprints. Today, the sand has changed into rock, but the prints remain. This frogfish was sheltering in a shallow pool. The fish gets its name because it looks something like a frog, and also, underwater, has a very loud croak. It's sometimes mistaken for the deadly stonefish. This is a fiddler crab, a male. These fiddler crabs live in burrows in the mud of mangrove-fringed shorelines. At low tide, the crabs come out to feed on bits of animal life spread over the mud. The food is picked up with the small claw. The male crab has one small claw for feeding and one huge claw for other purposes. With this, it can guard its burrow, drive off other male fiddlers, and perhaps, brandishing it like a gaudy cloak, fascinate the female and lure her to him. At low tide, this sea anemone lies spread out on the sand. Any disturbance and the animal pulls itself out of harm's way. A frigate bird. These rakish-looking seabirds with long, thin wings are sea pirates. They harry other seabirds such as gannets. The gannet, in desperation, disgorges a fish, and the frigate bird snaps up the food before it reaches the water. And so the sea pirate gets its meal. A baobab tree, usually called boabs. Boabs are only found in northern Australia and in Central Africa. The huge swollen trunk often contains great hollows. These may hold water, useful for thirsty travelers. These birds are red-collared lorikeets. Australia is a land of gaily coloured parrots and cockatoos. These are the clowns of the bird world, forever on the move, or in groups, chattering, quarrelling, or courting. These particular lorikeets are honeysuckers. They have tongues with brush tips for sopping up nectar from flowers. In great flocks they fly, screeching from flowering tree to flowering tree, the nomads of the Australian bush. A frilled lizard on the run. This lizard is the most spectacular of Australian reptiles. Around the neck is a huge frill which can be raised or lowered like an umbrella. When facing an enemy, the lizard opens up its huge mouth, and this, with its pink lining and the frill up, frightens off most attackers. The teeth are small and blunt, but the lizard, when it does bite, bites hard. A swamp pheasant. This is a shy member of the cuckoo family, which lives in the long grass near rivers. Though a cuckoo, it builds its own nest and looks after the chicks itself. Harry Butler with a banded tree snake. Harry Butler, a friend of Vin Serventy's, spent many months collecting animals in the tropic north. The Ord River. A small barrage dam has been built just above this spot, and the water held back is used to irrigate 30,000 acres of land used for cotton growing. The dammed waters also serve as a home for water birds like this egret. This black-fronted dotterel finds plenty of food on the edge of the dam. A red-browed pardalote was nesting in a sandbank nearby. These corellas were disturbed by a crocodile. White cockatoos like these are common throughout Australia. This is another member of the parrot family called the varied lorikeet. Like the other lorikeets, it has a brush tongue for sucking up nectar from flowers. This woolly butt tree is a eucalypt and was heavy with white flowers, packed with nectar. Bee-eaters watched nearby, ready to snap up some of the bees, which also gathered to sip the nectar. These are agile wallabies, coming for an early morning drink at the riverbank after a night spent feeding. They'll spend the rest of the day in sleep under the shade of the trees. Wallabies look just like kangaroos, though they're smaller. the wallabies showed enjoyment of the warmth of the early morning sun and the promise of another peaceful day. It was an idyllic scene, this early morning on the riverbank. Compass termite mounds. Carol Serventy examines these extraordinary homes built by the insects. The thin edge points north and south, so they're given the name of compass termites. Vin thinks this extraordinary shape is to help with the air conditioning of the mound. By having one side in the sun and hot, and the other side in the shade and cool, air is kept circulating all the time. In the tropic north of Australia, freshwater lakes are common. These are homes for water birds like this egret. 3 Burdekin ducks. These are becoming very rare. The egret sights a fish and leans into the hunting position. Burdekin ducks belong to the group of ducks known as shell ducks. In shell ducks, the females reverse the usual pattern by doing most of the courting. The female encourages the male to fight for her favors. A straw-necked ibis joins the ducks. The duck has a long neck to reach the bottom. The ibis has a long beak as well to help probe for food. For the egret, more skill is involved. A moving fish is harder to catch. On the riverbank, spur-wing plovers snap up insects. These wary birds give warning of danger to all the inhabitants of the lake. One of the loveliest of the swamp birds, the lily trotter or lotus bird. With toes 2.5 inches across, the lotus bird is able to walk over the water, using the lily leaves as supports. A tropic pool is an interesting and lovely place. Throughout the tropic north of Australia are flowering trees. Many are eucalypts or gum trees. Many are a group of trees called grevilleas. Here is a forest of cream-flowered grevilleas, which attracted thousands of honey-eating birds. Most of the birds were red-collared lorikeets. Vin found the whole air smelt of honey, and the scent could be picked up 1/2 mile from the forest. The feast of nectar so excited the birds, they flew screeching through the flowering forest in high excitement. Some drank so much, they collapsed helpless to the ground below. Nearby, a brown hawk delicately picked at a victim held in its sharp talons. Huge bats began to move from the treetops where they'd rested during the day. At sunset, they fly out to feast on the nectar. Often, the heat of the sun troubles the bats, and they fan their bodies with their wings to bring some cooling effect. So huge are these bats, they're often called flying foxes, since the furry head is fox-like in appearance. Slow motion shows how the leathery wings are used in flight. In the plateau country of Arnhem Land, in the Northern Territory, are many caves. Many are art galleries of native paintings. These huge heads were painted on the rocks by the Aborigines who still live in the area. whole of the roof of this cave was covered with paintings. The pigments used were red and yellow ochres, black charcoal and white clay. These paintings are part of the ritual magic of the Aborigines. These stick figures are strongly reminiscent of some of the famous modern European paintings. This drawing of a kangaroo shows some of the internal organs. These are called X-ray paintings, and this kind of art is found only in this region. Many of the paintings show a level of skill which would earn them a place in any gallery of modern art. A wedge-tail eagle. Australia's largest eagle can have a wingspan of 9 feet. The wedge-tail is the 4th largest eagle in the world. Nests are huge structures built high in a tree. Wedge-tails eat many rabbits and other pests. Ormiston Gorge in Central Australia. Permanent pools provide swimming spots for the thousands of tourists who come here every year. Pied butcherbird. This bird has one of the most melodious songs of any of the world's birds. The rocks of the center, like this quartzite, glow with color. The name butcherbird comes from the habit of impaling its food on spikes or wedging it into forks of trees. The bird can then pull its food to pieces. A favored tree will look something like a butcher's shop with fragments of lizards, insects, mice, and small birds. A desert wild tomato plant. In the Central Australian desert, red is the dominating color. Desert ghost gum. The bower of the spotted bowerbird, with the bird hard at work. Bowerbirds are regarded by many scientists as the world's most extraordinary birds. The male bird takes no part in nest building or looking after the eggs or rearing the young. His time is spent entirely looking after the bower, in this case, a platform of sticks with 2 walls making a corridor. This bower is decorated with all sorts of ornaments, like bits of white stone, fragments of glass, berries, old cartridge cases, wire, nails, and other oddments. The female is attracted to the bower where mating takes place. On the walls of the bower can be seen lighter sections. These have actually been painted by the bird, using chewed up bits of leaves as paint and its beak as a brush. For this male spotted bowerbird, the bower is his castle he must defend against all other males. This intruder may be another male, or it may be a female. Both male and female look alike. However, an intruder brings him into full display. Because male and female look alike, he displays at all intruders. If it is a male, it's frightened away. If it is a female, it stays. This time, the intruder seems attracted by the display. Perhaps it's a female. At times like these, the spotted bowerbird forgets all danger in the excitement of the moment. To add to the bower and the display dance, the bird pours out a vigorous song which can be heard over a long distance. This serves not only as a signal to other bowerbirds, but also brings enemies, such as dingoes or goannas. Being a male bowerbird must be a chancy business. Many must get killed. Perhaps the bowerbirds practice polygamy, and one father may have a number of wives. There would always be spare males to take over the bower should the original owner be killed. Though this time the female stays, the display is all to no purpose. Serventy filmed this bird during a long period when drought held the center in a 7-year grip. Few birds bred during that time, so the male's magnificent courtship display was wasted. Yet it is amazing to think that all the complex display and the extraordinary bower have only one purpose: to achieve nature's aim of producing a new generation of birds to carry on the race. At this spot, we've been privileged to watch one of the most exciting sights the Australian bush has to offer. Every rock, every river, every hill in Australia held meaning for the Aborigines. This huge snake painting has tremendous importance for the natives of the Yuendamu area, some 300 miles northwest of Alice Springs. Each year, men grind ochre into powder to repair the snake. If the ritual is not carried out, then the land and its people will all disappear once more. In the long ago, or the dream time as they call it, this huge snake made the tribal land and everything in it. Each horseshoe shape represents a person created in the dream time. The men explained the meaning of each part of the design to Vin. As young men, they learned the story from the old men of the tribe, and so the legends have been passed on for thousands of years. Although the snake was the center of the whole gallery, other drawings were common. The small tracks are those of the spirit dingo, the wild dog of the Aborigines. The men also allowed Vin to look at the sacred boards. These were placed on a piece of cloth, so the sacred quality would not be lost on the ground. The Olgas. These mountains are about 20 miles to the west of Ayers Rock. The many domes are separated by deep gorges. Ayers Rock, the largest single stone in the world. The rock is 2 miles long, about 5 miles around the base, and rises just over 1,100 feet. The Brain. To the Aborigines, it was the camp of men of the Dreamtime, for Ayers Rock was of tremendous religious significance to these first Australians. The many caves around Ayers Rock are filled with paintings which tell the story of the Dreamtime. Thousands of years before the pyramids of Egypt were built, the Aborigines were creating these paintings. There's a timeless quality about this red center, a feeling of a past stretching beyond all our recorded history. A white man on horseback appears. This coming of the white man was to destroy the delicate fabric of the Aboriginal civilization. Yet the magic remains. Here in the red center, Man not only feels his kinship with the land, he also gains a truer perspective of life. The immensity of this enduring rock in a red desert produces a feeling of awe, of man's life as a fleeting moment in a continuous story.